Everyone thinks they know why ships avoid sailing around Africa. It's too far, they say. It takes too long. The Suez Canal is shorter. But here's the thing, distance isn't even close to being the real reason. In fact, if distance were the only problem, every shipping company in the world would have solved it decades ago with bigger engines and better logistics. No, the real reason ships fear the route around Africa has nothing to do with mileage and everything to do with something far more sinister. We're talking about a maritime death trap so terrifying that even modern technology, satellite navigation, and billion-dollar insurance policies can't make it safe. We're talking about a 6,000-mile gauntlet of pirates, predators, and phenomena that seem to defy the laws of physics themselves. Want proof that distance isn't the issue? Consider this. Ships regularly travel 12,000 miles from Los Angeles to Shanghai via the Pacific. They happily cross 8,000 miles of open ocean from Europe to New York. The transatlantic route from Liverpool to Sydney covers nearly 14,000 miles, and nobody bats an eye. But mention the 11,000-mile route around Africa, and maritime insurance companies start hyperventilating. Shipping executives suddenly develop mysterious scheduling conflicts. Ship captains, tough men and women who have weathered hurricanes and navigated icebergs, get a haunted look in their eyes and start talking about early retirement. So what's really going on here? What is it about this particular stretch of water that makes grown sailors weep and seasoned maritime executives lose sleep? The answer is a combination of natural disasters, human predators, and mysterious phenomena that turns the waters around Africa into what maritime insurers euphemistically call an elevated risk environment. Translation: it's where ships go to die. Let's start with the most obvious non-distance problem: pirates. But we're not talking about Jack Sparrow with a wooden leg and a talking parrot. We're talking about sophisticated criminal organizations operating billion-dollar enterprises with military-grade equipment, intelligence networks that would make the CIA jealous, and a business model that treats merchant vessels like floating ATMs. The coast of Africa hosts not one, not two, but three major piracy hotspots, creating what maritime security experts grimly call the Triangle of Terror. You've got Somalia in the east, the Gulf of Guinea in the west, and increasingly, the waters off Mozambique in the south. Together, these three regions account for over 80% of the world's maritime piracy incidents. But here's what makes African piracy so uniquely terrifying. These aren't desperate fishermen in rusty boats. These are criminal enterprises that operate like corporations. They have HR departments, marketing strategies, and customer service protocols. They literally have call centers where kidnapped crew members can phone their families to arrange ransom payments. Take the Somali pirates. At their peak in 2011, they were holding 700 hostages from 31 different vessels simultaneously. They had constructed floating prisons, repurposed cargo ships anchored offshore where they could hold crews for months or even years while ransom negotiations played out. They had developed a standardized fee structure: $4 million for a cargo ship, $8 million for an oil tanker, and $12 million for a passenger vessel. But the most chilling part: they had a customer satisfaction guarantee. If a shipping company paid the ransom but wasn't happy with the service, maybe the crew was mistreated or the ship was damaged, the pirates would offer a discount on the next hijacking. They literally had repeat customers. The Gulf of Guinea pirates took this model and made it even more terrifying. Instead of holding ships for ransom, they perfected the art of phantom ship operations. They would board a vessel, kill or maroon the crew, repaint the ship, forge new documentation, and then sail it to a port where they could sell both the vessel and its cargo. The original ship would simply vanish from all records. Between 2015 and 2020, over 150 large vessels disappeared this way off the west coast of Africa. That's roughly one ship every 2 weeks. Some of these vessels were worth over $200 million each, but they might as well have sailed into a black hole for all the trace they left behind. But pirates are just the beginning. The waters around Africa are home to what marine biologists call apex predator concentrations, Basically, places where the ocean's most dangerous creatures gather in numbers that seem almost supernatural. Start with the great white sharks off South Africa. Most people know that this region has the world's largest population of great whites, but the numbers are truly staggering. Marine biologists estimate there are between 3,000 and 5,000 great whites patrolling the waters around the Cape of Good Hope at any given time. That's roughly one massive predator for every square mile of ocean. But it gets worse. These aren't the relatively docile great whites you might encounter in California or Australia. The South African great whites are what researchers call hyperaggressive, possibly due to the abundance of seals in the area, or maybe because of the unique water conditions created by the mixing of warm Indian Ocean currents with cold Atlantic waters. Whatever the reason, these sharks display hunting behaviors that marine biologists describe as almost supernatural. They've been documented attacking boats that are moving at speeds of over 20 knots, something that should be physically impossible for any marine predator. They've been filmed launching themselves completely out of the water to attack objects 15 feet above the surface. Even more disturbing are the reports from shipwreck survivors. The HMS Birkenhead incident in 1852 is the most famous example, but it's far from the only one. Maritime rescue records from the past 150 years document over 300 incidents where shipwreck survivors reported coordinated shark attacks, not random feeding frenzies, but organized assault patterns that suggest a level of intelligence that sharks aren't supposed to possess. In 1943, the cargo ship SS Ceramic was torpedoed 300 miles off the Cape of Good Hope. Of the 656 people aboard, only one man survived, and his rescue report, buried in British Admiralty files for decades, describes something that sounds more like a horror movie than a maritime disaster. According to the survivor, Eric Munday, the sharks that attacked the lifeboats weren't feeding randomly. They were working in coordinated groups, with some sharks holding back while others attacked, then switching roles in what he described as shifts. The attacks continued for over 18 hours, with the sharks demonstrating what Munday called tactical thinking that was more frightening than the torpedo that sank us. The official report dismissed Munday's account as trauma-induced hallucinations, but similar reports keep surfacing. As recently as 2019, the crew of a research vessel filming great whites off the Cape documented behavior that their marine biologists described as tactically sophisticated beyond anything we thought possible for sharks. Then there's the weather. The waters around Africa don't just have storms, they have meteorological phenomena that seem to violate the basic laws of physics. Welcome to the Roaring 40s, Furious 50s, and Screaming 60s, latitude bands where the wind never stops howling, and the waves grow to sizes that shouldn't be possible. This isn't hyperbole. These are actual meteorological terms used by weather services to describe wind and wave conditions that are so extreme they require their own classification system. In the Roaring 40s, 40-50 degrees south latitude, sustained winds of 70 mph are considered normal. In the Furious 50s, 90 mph winds are routine. In the Screaming 60s, wind speeds regularly exceed 120 mph. That's Category 3 hurricane strength, except it never stops. But the real terror isn't the wind, it's the waves. The Southern Ocean around Africa is the only body of water on Earth where waves can build momentum uninterrupted around the entire globe. Picture this. A storm forms off the coast of Argentina, generates massive waves, and those waves travel eastward around Antarctica, picking up energy from every storm they encounter along the way. By the time these waves reach the waters around Africa, they've been building power for thousands of miles. The result? Wave heights that regularly exceed 80 feet, with some documented waves reaching over 120 feet, taller than a 10-story building. But even that's not the scariest part. The scariest part is something oceanographers call rogue waves, massive walls of water that appear suddenly, tower over everything around them, and disappear just as quickly. Traditional wave theory says that rogue waves should be statistically impossible. The math simply doesn't work. But in the waters around Africa, they're documented several times per year. In 2001, the research vessel RRS Discovery recorded a rogue wave off the Cape of Good Hope that was 95 feet tall, nearly twice the height of any other wave in the area. The wave appeared on sonar for exactly 3 minutes and 17 seconds, during which time it moved at speeds that violate everything we know about wave physics. Then it simply vanished, leaving behind perfectly normal sea conditions. Which brings us to perhaps the most terrifying non-distance reason to avoid the route around Africa: ships that simply disappear. We're not talking about ancient sailing vessels or rusty cargo ships from developing countries. We're talking about modern vessels equipped with GPS, satellite communication, emergency beacons, and every safety system known to maritime science. Ships that one day are sending routine position reports and the next day are simply gone, as if they never existed. The MV Stellar Daisy was a 266,000-ton ore carrier, one of the largest ships ever built. In March 2017, it was transiting around the Cape of Good Hope carrying iron ore from Brazil to China. The ship was equipped with state-of-the-art navigation systems, automatic emergency beacons, and a crew of 24 experienced mariners. On March 31st, the ship sent a routine position report placing it 1,700 miles west of the Cape of Good Hope. Everything was normal, good weather, calm seas, no mechanical problems reported. 8 hours later, the ship simply stopped transmitting. Search and rescue teams from 4 different countries scoured over 200,000 square miles of ocean. They found 2 bodies and some debris, but the ship itself, all 266,000 tons of it, had vanished completely. The final investigation concluded that the vessel had suffered catastrophic structural failure due to unknown causes, which is maritime bureaucrat speak for we have absolutely no idea what happened. But the Stellar Daisy wasn't an isolated incident. Maritime insurance records show that large vessels, ships over 500 feet long, disappear in the waters around Africa at a rate that's statistically impossible. Between 2000 and 2020, 47 major vessels vanished without a trace in these waters. That's more than 2 ships per year, in an age when satellite tracking should make it impossible for anything larger than a rowboat to disappear completely. Even more disturbing is the pattern. These disappearances don't happen during storms or extreme weather. They happen during calm conditions when everything appears normal, when the ships are in regular radio contact with shore. 1 minute they're there, the next. But let's say you're willing to risk the pirates, predators, and phantom physics. There's still the small matter of politics, and the waters around Africa are a geopolitical minefield that makes the Middle East look peaceful. Start with Somalia, which has been in a state of civil war since 1991. The internationally recognized government controls maybe 30% of the country. The rest is divided between various warlords, terrorist groups, and autonomous regions that don't recognize each other's authority. What does this mean for shipping? It means there's no coherent authority to provide maritime security, coordinate search and rescue operations, or even enforce basic maritime law. When pirates attack ships off Somalia, there's literally no one to call for help. The Somali Navy consists of a few rusty patrol boats that are more likely to be involved in piracy than preventing it. The situation is even worse in the Gulf of Guinea, where 6 different countries claim overlapping territorial waters, none of which trust each other enough to coordinate anti-piracy operations. Nigeria has the largest navy in the region, but it's more focused on protecting oil installations than international shipping. Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Cameroon have navies that exist mostly on paper. The result is a power vacuum that criminal organizations have exploited to create what maritime security experts call pirate kingdoms, areas of ocean, where criminal gangs operate with complete impunity, using small islands and remote coastlines as bases for attacks on international shipping. But perhaps the most dangerous political situation is developing in Mozambique, where an ISIS-affiliated terrorist group has been waging an insurgency since 2017. The group, known locally as Al-Shabaab, not to be confused with the Somali group of the same name, has specifically targeted maritime infrastructure, attacking ports, kidnapping foreign workers, and using speedboats to launch attacks on ships transiting the Mozambique Channel. In 2023, the group demonstrated the ability to coordinate simultaneous attacks on multiple vessels, suggesting a level of organization and capability that poses a serious threat to international shipping. Several major shipping companies have quietly removed the Mozambique Channel from their route planning, forcing